So talking about this suprasternal notch, you must have a quick revision about this, that you have this manubrium, then you have this sternum in the front, and there you have is the thoracic spine, right? This is the thoracic spine. And remember that this is the plane we were talking about, suprasternal plane, transverse plane. So remember there are two vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae, T1 and T2, which lie above the level of suprasternal plane. Then this transverse plane here posteriorly, it passes through the lower border of T4-Thoracic vertebra. And then you know, here there is this diaphragm. So the highest plane of the diaphragm, highest level of the diaphragm in a normal supine position. In an erect posture, it might descend a little 1-2 segments below, especially while deep inhalation. Well, the highest level of the dome of the diaphragm, that is T8. This is the first rib reaching here like this. So that makes the thoracic inlet. This is the thoracic inlet. So what you see is that this is the angle of thoracic inlet, and that is around 45 degrees. So first rib is an angulation of about 45 degrees, right? So remember that suprasternal notch posteriorly crosses between T2 T3. So you can write it down here that this is the levels of T2 T3. This transverse plane is the plane of sternal angle, and this plane of sternal angle passes between T4 and T5. So that means two vertebrae are above the level of
suprasternal notch
and two vertebrae occupy
posterior relation of manubrium sterni.
You know what? Between the thoracic inlet and over to the diaphragm and between the two lungs, the space is called the mediastinum. That space has been divided by this transverse plane of the sternal angle into superior mediastinum and an inferior mediastinum. So what lies in the thoracic cavity above this level of the sternal angle is the content of superior mediastinum, and what lies below to this level of the sternal angle above to the diaphragm, and that's the inferior mediastinum. Now for the convenience, we divide this inferior mediastinum further into three parts. This inferior mediastinum is again divided by this fibrous pericardium. What I have drawn is the fibrous pericardium, which divides into anterior, middle and the posterior mediastinum. So in this view, what you are seeing is the sternal and the plane of thoracic inlet is obliquely tilted at around 45 degrees with the horizontal, and that makes this, two vertebrae, T1 and T2, which lie above the level of suprasternal notch, and then the two vertebrae, T3 and T4, which form the
posterior relation of manubrium sterni.
And below to this level of the sternal angle, what lies above to the diaphragm, this is space between the two lungs is the inferior mediastinum, and this inferior mediastinum is divided into three parts by this fibrous pericardium. So in the inferior mediastinum, what lies anterior to the fibrous pericardium is called the anterior mediastinum. What are the contents of middle mediastinum are the contents which are bounded by this fibrous pericardium, and what lies behind below the level of sternal angle in the inferior mediastinum is called to be posterior mediastinum. So at this level of T8 in the diaphragm, there is this opening because it stretches the central tendon of the diaphragm, which is centrally placed over to which there is the base of the fibrous pericardium resting onto the central tendon of the diaphragm, and they are actually tethered, right? So they're fused. So remember, there is the central opening in the central tendon of the diaphragm, tendinous opening, and that is for this vena cava, inferior vena cava. So highest level of the dome of the diaphragm is T8. The opening in the central tendon of the diaphragm, that is vena cava opening, that also lies at the level of T8. Then behind the posterior mediastinum, there is this content called the esophagus. This is esophagus, a hollow tubular muscular tube which is generally collapsed. It dilates only when the bolus passes through this. So there will be another opening in the diaphragm for the passage of this esophagus, and this opening lies opposite to T10 vertebra. That is the muscular opening, or you can say it esophageal opening. Here in this opening for the inferior vena cava, what passes along with the phrenic nerve, right phrenic nerve, left phrenic nerve. Actually, they are descending down to the fibrous pericardium. So the right phrenic nerve descends down along with this inferior vena cava under the undersurface of the diaphragm, but the left phrenic nerve reaches to the cupula of the left dome of the diaphragm. Through the esophageal opening in the esophagus, that traverses down along with the vagus, right and left vagus, along with the left gastric vessels, the esophageal branches of the left gastric vessels. Then the last portion here again you find is the posterior placed structure, and this structure actually descends down here between the two crusts of the diaphragm. There will be the crust of the diaphragm. Remember that the two crusts, the right crust is reaching down here more up to the level of L1, L2, L3 and body of the lumbar vertebrae, and here it's only one L1 and L2. So that's an arc, muscular arc, and it's not a complete opening because posteriorly you have the body of vertebra, T12. So this aortic opening lies at the level of T12. This is aortic opening, and along with the aorta, I'm not labeling everything. I hope you are listening. Keep following everything. These are not writing everything. Along with this abdominal aortic opening, on the right side of the abdominal aorta, there will be thoracic duct ascending up, as well as the azygos vein that lies up. Anyway, so these were the vertebral levels. They were important, but still this is not complete because this level of sternal angle, that is T4-T5, is very, very important. So what lies immediately behind the manubrium sterni? Like if you drill a hole at the level of the lower portion of the manubrium, where will the needle enter? So remember, onto this portion here, at the lower portion of this manubrium, you find is the arch of aorta. So in case it is asked, what is the level of the arch of aorta? Right, this arching, this will pass at the level of T4. And behind here, this is left internal jugular, then there will be left subclavian. Both of them will join here like this, and here it will be right internal jugular, right subclavian vein. Both will join to form right brachiocephalic vein, and together they will form is the superior vena cava. And superior vena cava will also receive a tributary, and that is called azygos, right? Azygos vein. So then this is superior vena cava. I have to point out the transverse planes in this lecture. So I'm just emphasizing upon, you keep on noting down the vertebral levels in this lecture. So arch of aorta, T4, just behind the lower portion of manubrium. What lies immediately behind the upper portion of manubrium? Left brachiocephalic vein. Okay. As you see, this pericardium is conical. It is wider below, resting on the central tendon of the diaphragm, and the upper portion is narrow. So remember, this middle mediastinum, it does not only includes the heart, but it also encloses the great vessels. It encloses the ascending aorta, the pulmonary trunk, and the lower portion or the proximal portion of superior vena cava. These are the contents of middle mediastinum. So what have you found out at this level? Like this. Let me complete it so it might be better for you to see. Maybe not very symmetrical diagram, but anyways, just to tell you the contents of this. And the vertebral levels, structures met at T4, T5, transverse plane. So, first thing, let's start from the superficial to deep. One thing is, when you talk about the cutaneous innervation, the purpose of telling is that this transverse plane here you're seeing, this is the plane passing through the sternal angle. So, very important thing about the cutaneous innervation of the chest. So above to this, the skin of the chest, including the shoulders, above to the sternal angle, that is innervated by C3, C4, and that is through the supraclavicular nerves. So remember, this is by medial, intermediate, and lateral supraclavicular nerves. This is medial, intermediate, and lateral supraclavicular nerves which supply the skin of the chest, the front of chest, above to the sternal angle. And the dermatomes here will be C3, C4, C3, C4. So remember, the flow of dermatomes, as I already told you, is along the preaxial border, and then it converges and returns back to the postaxial border. That's how the flow of dermatomes is. C3, C4, C5. C5 is the lateral side of the arm. C6 reaches to the thumb. C7 for the middle 3 digits. C8 for the little finger. T1 for the medial side of the arm, forearm. And T2 reaches to the medial side of the upper arm, or you can say the lateral wall of the axle. So that was about the cutaneous innervation here. And another thing is T1. T1 you can see is here, that has already been stretched along with the brachial plexus. T2, it's through this intercostobrachial nerve that T2 reaches to the axle. So which dermatome which you'll find here is T2, and here what you'll find is C4. So C4 meets T2, right? This means there are missing dermatomes at this level of sternal angle. C4 meets T2. The intervening dermatomes, the brachial plexus, that is C5 to T1, that has been pulled up and been taken up by the apartments. And one another important thing about the flow of dermatomes is, let's say this is the spine and this is the skin, and let's say this is T3, T4, T5, T6, T7, T8. And if I ask which nerve is this, this nerve will be 4th thoracic nerve or the 5th thoracic. So you know that in thoracic segments, the nerves emerge from below to the corresponding vertebral level. So this is T4, this is T4. And let's say this T4, now it will innervate this much portion of the skin of the chest. Then this nerve coming out is which nerve? Now it is passing between T5 and T6. So this will be the 5th thoracic. So this 5th thoracic nerve will innervate this much area of the skin of the body. And now let's say this is the next nerve. This is T6. So T6 emerges and innervates this much portion of the skin of the body. So what have you concluded from this? That the successive dermatomes, they overlap. Successive dermatomes overlap. This overlapping has a lot of significance. That's why remember the typical dermatomes in the human body is T3 to T6, because they have like a belt type innervation, like the entire trunk of the body is innervated circumferentially by both the right and left sides. So this T5 you are seeing, this dermatome is this much area, the red color one, and that is being overlapped by T4 from above and partially being overlapped by T6 from below. So that means if there is only injury specific to T5's spinal segment, there will be no apparent sensory loss. There will be no apparent sensory loss. The area is being overlapped by T4 and T6, right? So, important fact concluded here that the successive dermatomes show overlapping, and if there is injury in this case, there will be no sensory loss. Apparently, there will be no sensory loss. Now come back to the sternal angle. If here there is injury of C4, or let's say there is injury of T2, there will be a sensory loss, because C4 will not override T2 and T2 will not override C4. So there will be no overlapping of dermatomes at this point. There are many other points as well. Remember this point here, that in the scrotum, L1 is anteriorly placed and S2, S3 is posteriorly placed. So in the scrotum also, or the labium majus, there also are the missing dermatomes. So in case of operating upon the scrotum or the perineum, you need to have that spinal anesthesia reach up to the element segment. Then only you get it completely anesthetized. So point number 1 is missing dermatomes. C4 joins T2. That's one important significance of this plane. Then it divides mediastinum into superior and inferior parts. So this is a plane, imaginary plane, which divides mediastinum into upper superior and inferior parts. Then apex of fibrous pericardium reaches to this level, right? Then in this diagram, as I told you, the ascending order terminates at this level. In case if somebody asks what is the vertebral level or a transverse section in which you will find ascending order, the answer will be T5 thoracic, T5 vertebral level. Then arch of aorta begins or commences at this level and terminates at this level. And then it's the thoracic aorta begins at this level. And from the right ventricle there was this pulmonary trunk which was dividing into right and left pulmonary arteries below this arch of aorta. And this also is happening just a little below to the sternal angle, or you can say at the level in case if they give it in an MCQ. But the fact is that this pulmonary trunk divides into right and left pulmonary arteries just below to this level. Pulmonary trunk divides into right and left pulmonary arteries just below this level. Then there is trachea. There is so much of drawing already here, so I am drawing it here. Trachea, which was descending down like this, trachea divides into right and left principal bronchus at this level, at the level of sternal angle. Bifurcation of the trachea at the level of sternal angle is called carina. Trachea bifurcates into right and left principal bronchus at this level, and that is called carina. Then as you know that this is the apex of the heart and the base of the heart is opposite to the apex. The base of the heart is the posterior surface. This you are seeing is the base of the heart, the posterior surface of the heart. So you can add this point, upper limit of base of heart reaches at to this level, sternal angle. As I was telling, you have this right and left hilum of the lungs, both the sides, because trachea is dividing the same level. So you will find that azygos vein, which enters the superior vena cava, that arches over to the root of the right lung at this level. Azygos vein arches over the root of the right lung and joins superior vena cava at this level. Just below to this arch of aorta, because arch of aorta is lying at this level of T4. So just below to that is a plexus. This plexus is placed under the curvature of this arch of aorta over to this
right pulmonary artery,
and this is called superficial cardiac plexus. So you can add this point here, superficial cardiac plexus lies at this level under the arch of aorta. Then about the deep cardiac plexus. Where is the deep cardiac plexus located? Remember that the deep cardiac plexus overlies the carina. It overlies here at the bifurcation of the trachea. This is the deep cardiac plexus. This is the superficial cardiac plexus, and this is the deep cardiac plexus, which overlies the bifurcation of trachea. Now again, as you know that trachea bifurcates here, so obviously this also, you can add up here that deep cardiac plexus you will find here at the level of carina. Then what else? You see a spine. So this is how the human spine appears from a distance. That means this is C1 and this is C7 and this is
T4-T5 junction. Correct it.
and this is L5S1 junction and this is coccyx. So what have you concluded? That the spine is widest of course at the sacral promontory and the spine is narrowest at the level of sternal angle. Vertebral column is narrowest at this level. So if it becomes narrow, it becomes unstable, right? For the weight transmission. The weight of the head and neck, or you can say the portion of the thorax, the head and neck, is actually sheared to the lower spine through the sternum and then through the ribs as well. Got it? So remember that this portion is the narrowest portion of the vertebral column. I hope you understood. There are not many questions asked. So you should know about this and the vertebral level of each of this. So in case what is asked, like superior vena cava, the length it extends at the level of 5th thoracic vertebrae, then 4th thoracic vertebrae. It is 7 centimeter in length, remember, superior vena cava. It is completely on the right side of this manubrium in the superior mediastinum. So it means it is opposite to T4 and it also reaches into the middle mediastinum and that is T5. So T4-T5 is the extent of superior vena cava. That was about the structures met in a transverse section through a plane passing through sternal angle. There was one or two more points to add up here in this transverse plane passing through the sternal angle. So I'm giving you like 13 points. You can add one more point. If you know this is the thoracic spine, right? And these are the thoracic vertebrae. And why not include, let's say, C7 also. So this becomes C7. Then this is T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, T6, right? So another structural differences which I was talking about, which are happening here at this level of this transverse plane passing through the sternal angle. So that is about the thoracic duct. So remember that thoracic duct, it begins from the sternocleidomastoid line opposite to L1 and L2 lumbar vertebrae, and from the lower border of T12, it ascends up on the right side of the abdominal aorta, and it ascends up on the right side of the abdominal aorta from lower border of T12, ascending up on the right side of the spine, reaches up to the 5th thoracic vertebrae. So when it reaches to the 5th thoracic vertebrae, then it moves to the opposite side. It crosses the spine like this at the level of T5, and then it keeps ascending up on the left side of the spine like this. And there is this formation of brachiocephalic vein like this. This left brachiocephalic vein is crossing the superior mediastinum behind the upper part of the manubrium. Well, purpose of telling you is that this is the transverse process of C7. So at the level of the transverse process of the C7 vertebrae, this thoracic duct arches like this, arches laterally. It drains into the left brachiocephalic vein at the junction of left internal jugular and left subclavian. So the point of telling you is about this transverse plane, right? So this is one structural difference you can add up is between T4, T5. This also is a structural change that takes place. It actually crosses opposite to
T5
from the right to the left side, but then in the superior mediastinum it ascends onto the left side of the spine.